Just want to start off with a reminder that this presentation is going to be recorded, so I just ask that everyone remain muted and have your cameras off. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sonia Habel, and I'm the workforce specialist at the Department of Public Health. If you've been to any recent MRC deployments, you might have seen me there assisting Satori, and I'm here to present the personal and family preparedness presentation to you all, and it is one of the topics that I am most passionate about. And we are kicking off National Preparedness Month as well. And this year's theme is Preparedness Starts at Home. So thank you all for spending your Monday night, hopefully at home, with me. And with that, we will get started. So a brief overview of um, this presentation this evening is we'll go over a brief introduction of preparedness. We'll identify head, hand, and home principles. We'll learn about food and water safety before and after disasters. Identify things to go in your go bag, as well as how to prepare for children, pets, older adults, and people with special considerations. So, personal and family preparedness empowers individuals and families to effectively respond to emergencies or disasters by building your confidence, reducing uncertainty, and increasing resilience, right? We want to make sure that you're coming out of this presentation with more knowledge on how to feel confident when facing any disaster or emergency. So, what are the basics of personal preparedness? We want to make sure that we're informed during emergencies, whether that's through TV, radio, social media, or our region's emergency text and email alert system, which is called Ready Philadelphia. And these are all great ways to stay connected and have the most up-to-date information during an emergency. Next is to know local hazards, right? We want to understand the potential dangers in our areas, such as wildfires, earthquakes, or hurricanes. For example, we are in Region 3 and we experience severe storms, flooding, wildfires, winter storms, hurricanes, pandemics, etc. And we want to make sure finally that we have a plan for those things, right? We want to make sure that we are including everyone in our household when thinking of how to plan for these emergencies, including your pets. So a little jingle or way to remember how to prepare for an emergency is what to have in your head, what to have in your hand, and what to have in your home. Okay. So what do we have to have in our head? We want to establish a plan before an emergency occurs. It is just how you can set yourself up for success during an emergency. Things can get hectic. It is so easy to forget important things. So we want to make sure that we're thinking things out before an emergency occurs. We can do this by utilizing a family communication plan, right? We want to make sure we have a designated out of area friend or relative, as well as someone local. Practicing your plan. The more you practice, what they say, practice makes perfect. You want to practice your fire drills, your emergency meeting places, and making sure that everyone in your family knows the location of your evacuation go bag. So just a few questions to kind of throw around in your mind when you're planning with your family is who will you contact? How will you contact them, right? Are you going to call them? Are you going to text them? Do they have access to a cell phone? And then where will you go and how will you get there? Do you have somebody outside of the region that you could go to? Where is your neighborhood meetup spot? And then how will you get there? Do you rely on public transportation? Do you bike, walk? Do you have a vehicle, right? Everybody's plan is going to look different according to their needs. So this is just an example of some resources that are out there. This one is from ready.gov on FEMA's website, and it's the Family Communication Plan. And it's a really great resource. It can allow you to have all of your important information in one place that you can kind of tuck in your go bag, which is great. It has a part for your insurance information, your medical contacts. I mean, believe it or not, I still look up the phone number to my primary care physician. Um, so in case that's not, accessible, it's really great to have it in a physical place. You have family information like who your family members, their names, date of birth, school or work information, and then again, your neighborhood meeting place, as well as your regional meeting place. And of course, your out of town contacts. There are so many examples of these resources, and then an additional one that I included was the Department of Public Health's health information card, and it folds up really nicely, and you can fit it in your purse or your wallet. But it essentially has some similar things like your emergency contacts, your own contact information, medical conditions, a space for medications, your regimens, right? Your dosage, your frequency. If you have medical equipment, special medical equipment like oxygen tanks, or if you refrigerate your medications, right? And then if you have any allergies. So that's all really important information to have. So continuing on, what to have in your hand. So we want to make sure that we're creating a personal evacuation kit, right? So we want to make sure the go bag is in an easily accessible place. We want to make sure that everyone in your family knows where it is. You want to have at least 3 days worth of supplies in the minimum, and then have items for children, older adults, pets, and those with access and functional needs. And this kit is going to look different for everyone depending on who is in your household. So we're just going to use the chat, and we are going to just type some items that should be included in your go bag. So I'll just give you guys a moment or two to kind of brainstorm some items. Water, ibuprofen, non-perishables, perfect. Band-Aids, flashlight, compass, perfect. Cliff Bar, the white chocolate and macadamia nut kind. That's tasty. I'm partial to the peanut butter ones. Prescriptions, cash, financial info, prescription medications. Yep, yep. Maps. Right. Great. All right. You guys had some really good guesses, and they're all correct, right? We want to make sure that we have spare medications. We have a first aid kit. We have non-perishable foods, and make sure that we have a way to open it. Can opener, utensils, right? Flashlight batteries, maps, GPSs. We have water, cash. We want to make sure that the cash is ideally smaller bills. This is just in case that there is no access to ATMs and banks are closed. We have our personal identification, important documents, whether you prefer that to be physical or on a flash drive, a weather radio, matches. Of course, we can't go anywhere without our phones, right? So we have to have a power bank for that as well, or chargers. And then I just included some weather protection materials, such as a poncho, masks. The list goes on, right? You could include personal sanitation things, feminine care products, right? We just want to make sure that you're tailoring this to your needs. Um, so next, what to have in your home if you needed to shelter in place. So we want to identify a room with few doors or windows and have at least 3 days worth of supplies. We need 1 gallon of water per person per day, including pets. You heard me right. It's a lot of water, but if you had 3 people in your house, 1 pet, you want to make sure that you have enough water for those folks. And then utilities. We want to make sure we know how to shut off our gas, our water, our electricity. We don't want a gas leak happening. And then moving hazardous materials. Wherever you choose to shelter in place, we want to make sure that you don't have cleaning products or chemicals or gasoline that could spill, right? So this is just another resource I included, that is a home emergency kit checklist. We kind of touched on a lot of these, but something that's listed on here is like plastic sheeting and duct tape to shelter in place, moist towelettes, wipes, or garbage bags, for personal sanitation. And then something really important to note, a wrench or pliers, right? We want to make sure we're able to turn off those utilities. Moving along, we're going to get into safe water. So like I said, 1 gallon per living thing per day. This is definitely going to vary if you have children, if you are nursing or sick. It's also going to vary if there is a medical emergency or those who reside in warmer climates. Something really important to note is we never want to ration water unless we're told to do so by authorities. And that is just so that we are not unnecessarily dehydrating ourselves. Um, Kind of going along with that, we also don't want to drink carbonated or caffeinated beverages instead of drinking water. And then, of course, we're just going to prioritize drinking water you know is not contaminated first. So, safe foods, do's and don'ts. We definitely want to keep food in covered containers so we can reduce the possibility of contamination as much as possible. We want to keep cooking and eating utensils clean as well. We want to make sure that we're washing those with clean water, not, flood water, for example. And then throw away food that has come in contact with contaminated floodwater, has been at room temperature for 2 hours or more, or has an unusual odor, color, or texture. It is recommended that you use ready to feed formula for infants, but if you must mix infant formula, it is best to just use bottled water and then boiled water as a last resort. Okay. We don't want to eat food from cans that are swollen, dented, or corroded, even though the product may look safe to eat. And we definitely don't want to eat any food that looks or smells abnormal. We don't also want to taste the food to see if it's gone bad. I mean, I know my partner is kind of guilty of that. I've seen them do it a couple times, but the last thing we want is to have any GI anomalies during an emergency. So kind of just rely on your context clues, and not play food roulette a little bit. So, and then finally, we don't want to let garbage accumulate inside, both for fire and sanitation reasons. So, evacuation, if you must leave, know when and where to go. Definitely look into your evacuation routes. Um, and then if you have a car, it is recommended that we have a half tank at all times and a full tank if evacuation seems likely, right? If we know a snowstorm is incoming, it'd be a great idea to make sure that your car has gas, right? Um, or go bags, right? We want to make sure we have our go bag, jumper cables, weather preparedness materials such as blankets, snow chains, a sun visor, scrapers for your windshield, Rain-X, things of that nature. Our maps, our GPSs, non-perishable foods and water, a car charger, and a flashlight. So now we're going to start to get into special considerations for certain populations, and we're going to start off with children. We want to make sure that we have all of their medical supplies, like baby aspirin, for example, or if your child is on any type of medical regimen, excuse me. Baby supplies, right? Wipes, formula, diapers. If you're breastfeeding, a pump, strollers, blankets, things of that nature. Comfort items, so things like toys, books, games, things for entertainment, favorite stuffed animal. These can make all the difference for children when they're experiencing Something as traumatic as a natural disaster or an emergency. It can be really comforting for them, right? We want to make sure they have at least 3 days worth of clothing and that they practice safety rules. We all learned stop, drop, and roll drills of that nature, and of course, your family emergency plan. Next, we're going to talk about preparing for your furry friends. We want to make sure that you have an updated picture of you and your pet, especially in case you get separated. It'll be great to have that photo so you can reunite and say, hey, this is my pet. Have their medical records stored in a safe place so that you can have proof of vaccination. So when you go to a shelter, they often require that your pet is up to date with their vaccinations. Have a carrier, leash, collar, um, medications, food, toys, and treats also for entertainment. Um, Bowls, litter for cats, puppy pads for dogs. You also want to practice with your pets, right? Like I have a cat. I kind of know how to corral my pet and kind of get him into his carrier. But when, the fire alarm's going off and he's hiding under the bed, right? We want to kind of avoid that by allowing them to get comfortable in their carriers or comfortable in the car if you have to evacuate. And then finally, if you have an exotic pet, that is going to look completely different, right? If you have a snake versus a dog. So we just want to make sure that we're being mindful of all the things our pets need. Okay, we're going to talk about preparing for older adults. So similarly, medical supplies and medicine, making sure we pack their medical equipment, batteries, and extra chargers, copies of Medicaid and Medicare and other insurance cards, their list of medications, diagnoses, and instructions. It also doesn't hurt to have spare eyeglasses, hearing aids, or mobility aids if possible. And then, in case of evacuation, we want to make sure we plan for transportation. If you know an older adult in your life is going to need help evacuating, thinking of that when making your plan. And then similarly, 3 days worth of clothing. Next, we have people with disabilities or access and functional needs. The best thing that I can recommend is communicating, right? We want to open up the conversation. If you know somebody in your life with a disability or you have one yourself, you know that you can and they can communicate what they need, right? So we want to coordinate and educate caregivers or household members on how best to assist these folks, right? You also want to build a support network by communicating with your neighbor. Say to your neighbor, my son, my daughter, my sister, whomever may have trouble evacuating and may need help, you know, from first responders because they have a mobility aid, right? Um, or your neighbors can come and assist, they can come and help. Next, we want to locate shelters in your area with accessibility accommodations. Is it wheelchair accessible? And then all shelters allow service animals, okay? I also recommend that packing specialized supplies, including communication tools or assistive technologies, sensory items, are really important because although most shelters are equipped with access and functional need kits, those supplies could be exacerbated, right? If there's a shelter with 500, 300 people, um, those kits could run a little scarce. So it's really best to pack those supplies that you need so that you feel comfortable in these settings. Then, of course, medical equipment and medications. And then next, plan ahead for accessible transportation for possible evacuation. So many cities and county emergency management agencies have a voluntary registry for people with disabilities, and they're able to self-identify to receive targeted assistance during emergencies and disasters. It is important to note that this doesn't guarantee that assistance will be available in the event of a disaster. So it's always great to have a contingency, whether that is, like I said, like planning with your neighbor or a family member that's in the area that is able to come and check on you or your caregiver. Additional special considerations. So we touched on medical equipment, special dietary foods, right? If I'm a vegetarian, I'm not going to be packing canned tuna or canned chicken. If I'm gluten free, I'm not going to be, packing pasta or things that I can't ingest, right? We want to make sure that we're packing food that's enjoyable, that we like to eat, that's in within our dietary restrictions. We touched on extra batteries and backup chargers, medical alert bracelets, coolers or ice packs for medication that is refrigerated, um, extra medication, and then, of course, your comfort items. So, low cost preparedness. Um, One of the things I appreciated about this year's theme of preparedness starts at home is that we don't need the fancy $200, disaster kits that they sell on Amazon, right? A lot of the things that are in your go bag can be found in your house, in your attic or garage, and you can most definitely build this kit over time. The first thing that is low cost and is free is doing your research, which you are all taking the first step in attending this training tonight, is knowing which disasters are common in your area. Practicing hazard specific drills, like I said, stop, drop, and roll, drop, cover, and hold on for earthquakes, and signing up for emergency alerts. So here I have a QR code for the Ready Philadelphia alert system. So if you would like to sign up, that should take you to the website. If for whatever reason it doesn't work, after this presentation, me and or Satori can send out some resources to you all, including some of the handheld ones that I spoke about earlier. Um, Next is checking out free programs in the community. The Office of Emergency Management runs a ton of workshops that surround preparedness or readiness, and as do we. Download free preparedness materials like the ones, that were earlier in the PowerPoint. And like I said, building your kit over time. You can be very resourceful by going to garage sales, Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, discount stores, or community food banks for canned goods. And then maintaining your kit. So it's recommended that you update the kit twice a year or as needed. I always kind of do it with the changing of the seasons, right? We want to make sure that, it's not going to collect dust and that like things are going to expire in there. So we want to make sure we're frequently checking on our canned goods or spare medications that we're including. And then items that are relevant to the environment. If you decide one day that you're moving outside of the Philadelphia area and you're moving to SoCal, your go bag is going to look a lot different than someone who's in New Jersey or Arizona. So we want to make sure that we're keeping items that are relevant to the geographical location that we're in. The next thing is insurance. So we want to understand our insurance policies, whether you're a renter or you have home insurance. It's really great to kind of read through those policies to see what your coverage is like. Take pictures of all important and high cost items. We want to make sure we have copies of all of this paperwork that is needed, digital or physical, whether you want to keep that stuff in your go bag, upload it to a cloud, or have a USB. We just want to make sure that we have that information with us. Finally, just as a recap, I included this graphic as 12 ways to prepare. So like we talked about, signing up for alerts and warnings so you have the most up-to-date information, making a plan, being conscious of those who are in your household, save for a rainy day, right? Do some preparedness shopping. Um, Practice your emergency drills. If you have some spare time with your family, and or children, um, practicing those drills, going to that neighborhood meetup place, um, testing your communication plan, safeguarding your documents, planning with your neighbors, making your home safer, being aware of your evacuation routes, um, updating your supplies, and then, of course, getting involved in your community, which you as MRC volunteers most definitely do. Um, and then document and insure your property. Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat? That about sums it up. I'll pull up the chat here.
I'm
That,
currently not seeing anything right now. Um, there's a
oh,
few
Tina.
suggestions in the chat when you were mentioning things to go in your go bag. Tina also recommended getting your pets microchipped.
Yeah, that is actually a really great suggestion because then your information and your pet's information is really accessible and you don't have to think about it too much. I also saw that Tina said that they can't fit everything in there for 3 days, and that made me that makes me laugh a little too because I've experienced that as well. Um, it's hard to fit all of that in, without lugging a bunch of stuff with you. But um, yeah, I've been there.
My suggestion, and this is just me, this is what I do. I have multiple go bags in multiple places. That way it's like
Yeah,
if I can get to, two or three of my bags, at least you have a good supply of things instead of
right.
overloading one bag with, a bunch of stuff. But
Yeah. The second thing is like me and my partner both have different go bags. So each member of the family could have their own go bag, which I guess could stretch out the like space for things. Yeah, that's also what I would recommend. But okay, if you do have any additional questions, we do have our email here on the slide or our phone number. And you could always email us with any questions that you can think of. Do you recommend a bag over a box? That's a great question. So for a go bag, I would recommend an actual bag that you feel comfortable carrying around. But if you are sheltering in place, that's when I would recommend a box, a plastic bin, um, that you could store additional things in. Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone spending their Monday night with us. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. And yeah, thank you so much, Satori.